Good afternoon, good evening, good night, everyone. Welcome to the third webinar in a series of webinars for the Leadership for ODL in TVET course. My name is Clover Barnett, and I am your moderator tonight. We are very happy to be in this forum again for our third webinar. The Leadership for Open and Distant Learning in TVET course is offered through support from the Commonwealth of Learning in partnership with the National Board for Technical Education in Nigeria and the Technical and Vocational Education and Training Authority in Kenya. This partnership will support improved effectiveness, leveraging open and distant learning through policy strategy development and capacity building, in addition to focusing on increased, equitable, and inclusive access to quality skills development, especially for women, girls, and people with disabilities. The webinars so far have been very interesting and inspiring, and I have no doubt that today you'll have another inspiring and especially exciting webinar, as we are joined today by Dr. Tarno, and you will meet Dr. Tarno a little bit later. So right now I want to invite Robert Okinda, our skills advisor from the Commonwealth of Learning, to greet us and to bring a few brief remarks. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you very much, Clover. It's a pleasure to meet everyone. Good evening on your end. On our side, it is still good morning. It's a pleasure to be part of this session where we've been having a webinar series for the TVET leaders who are going through this program. And this should be the last webinar in this particular series. And we look forward to the teams completing their strategies and then attend the wrap-up workshop in Lagos, Nigeria in December for maybe finalizing the strategies and also developing the action plans. We also look forward to supporting the institutions whose strategies would be approved. We'll be able to work with them in the next 2-3 years to support implementation of those strategies. And it would be prudent to indicate that those who may not be able to go to Lagos will also be able to join in virtually and remotely and support the other teams who will be there. And we also look forward to maybe the teams getting certificates, irrespective of the teams that go to Lagos. All those who complete the course requirements will be able to get their certificates. And maybe one aspect that I'll need to maybe emphasize as we start this webinar is for us to institute a culture, and that leadership culture. There are so many things we need to look into, and we are appreciative of Dr. Tarno taking time out of his busy schedule to come in and help us unravel the skills and the experience he has had in transforming TVET institutions. Thank you very much, Clover.
Thank you so much, Robert. Before we proceed a little further, I'm going to ask that you reserve your questions for the end. Dr. Tarno has a story to tell, and we want to ensure that he gets the opportunity to tell his story. He's a phenomenal leader, a distinguished leader who has gained many wonderful experiences that he has so kindly consented to share with us this evening tonight. So we'll reserve our questions toward the end. The approach that we will use is to I will be asking Dr. Tarno some questions, and he will respond. I know, Dr. Tarno, we've been out of time to go through all the questions, but I'm sure you'll be willing to work with us. Let me introduce him. Dr. Edwin Tarno is a distinguished figure in the field of TVET in Kenya, with a career spanning over 35 years. He doesn't really look like 35 himself. I'm not sure about those 35 years. He serves as the CEO of the Kenya School of TVET, where he has played a crucial role in transforming it into a center for quality technical trainer education. He was the principal at the Rift Valley Technical Training Institute, where he contributed significantly to its growth and success to become a center of excellence in East Africa. Dr. Tarno holds a PhD in Organization Development and Transformation. He is the founder and editor of Kenya TVET Journal and the Africa TVET Journal. Dr. Tarno's unwavering dedication to TVET has significantly impacted the sector, and his leadership has been instrumental in transforming the TVET sector in Kenya and the East Africa region. Dr. Tarno, it's our absolute pleasure to have you joining us in our third webinar. And I know, Dr. Tarno, it's a long day for you, and I'm sure you're still at work, but nonetheless, you have consented to join us, and we're ever so happy to have you. So Dr. Tarno, I'll be asking you some questions. And as I said, I may not get through all, but we really want to hear your story. So here we go. What concerns motivated you to get set on this transformative quest at RVTTI and KTTC? And you can explain what those mean for us. And what were the objectives that you set as a result?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I can.
Very well. I really want to, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my few stories around TVET. I appreciate this opportunity. And RVTTI means Rift Valley Technical Training Institute. And KTTC, which was formerly Kenya Technical Trainers College, is now Kenya School of TVET. So I also wanted to mention that I may not be necessarily the best in the world of TVET, but I think I've successfully managed to do good things here and there. Of course, I've had my challenges all over. Sometimes I've had learning experiences that come with those challenges. So it's been a long journey. But you asked me about what are the things that drives me in this performance. There are several aspects, but again, the biggest one is my experience in the TVET sector. I was a student in secondary school in a TVET secondary school to start with. So usually we make a joke like I've been in TVET since Form 1 up to now. So that's a long time. So I think it gives me opportunity then to know so much, and therefore have a lot of time to reflect on things that I've done either correctly or challenges that I've faced. Similarly, my experience over time has given me opportunity to learn, not to make mistakes here or to make mistakes and learn how to correct them. It's given me networks that allows me then to be able to consult and share, like we're sharing now, and many times we've shared with you people in many fora. So, and then of course the passion. A lot of people do not have passion for what they do. A lot of people do the job because it's a job, and therefore it becomes difficult for them to have the self-drive, the inner motivation to move to the next level. That is very important for any leader. If you don't have the passion on what you do, the best way is to quit and do something that you have passion in. And then, of course, another attribute that most of the people who know me, I think majority of them who may be listening, know that I love perfection. I love perfection. I don't like things not being done in the right way. Sometimes very irritating, sometimes for us who are perfectionists. But it's also, it's a good drive because it makes you want to get to the top class of everything. And therefore you improve quickly when you reach that level. Then the students and the youth are one of the biggest motivators. You cannot imagine meeting a student. I met some few at KFC here in Eldoret sometimes, or here in Nairobi, and they take a selfie, they tell you, it's satisfying. You feel nice that someone somewhere feels nice about you. And it's something that uses us, it drives us to do the best in what we do. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Dr. Tarno, you spoke about the passion and people. And my next question speaks to resistance to change. I'm sure along this journey, you came across some challenges in terms of resistance. Where did the greatest resistance to change come from? And what strategies did you use to address these?
That's a very interesting question. I will give you a very interesting one. The biggest challenge I've ever had is human resource management.
Mm.
It's not financial management. It is not all this other. It's human resource management. The aspect of human resource is difficult. People talk of finances as being a challenge, but it's the human resource that creates that finance. So if you have the right human resource, finance will be created, finance will be managed. So the greatest challenge I've ever had everywhere is human resource, the attitude of the people you're working with, the disposition of the people that you're working with, the diligence level of those people you're working with, the commitment level of those people you're working with, also the knowledge level. There are some people who are goodwill, but they just don't know what they're supposed to do. So we have all that combination, and human resource is very interesting. Ignorance is expensive. And I've learned to do many things. One of the things I like doing, which I think is the best that all of us can borrow, is to train human resource. The fact that they don't know, the Bible says ignorance kills, and that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. So you train them, you train them. It's a difficult thing to do. A lot of us think that it's expensive to go for seminars. It is expensive to go for webinars, but very consistent performing managers and institutions spend between 1% to 10% of their annual budget on human resource development. Mm-hmm. You do that because you have coaching that can take place. You coach them. You have reward systems, and of course the punishment systems. You remember the carrot and stick as a teacher. I know, Clover, you're a teacher. So then these issues of carrot and stick also make sense. You reward those ones that are able to do it. And you must be able to also have very funny things, meetings that are always there. But the most critical thing, meetings I've ever found to give me more information, is the informal meetings. Mm-hmm. You meet a student on the streets, just ask them what's going on, what do they think? They tell you things that nobody else tells you. You meet a teacher somewhere in a corner, you tell him, are we doing well? He tells you, no, I wanted to tell you privately, we're actually not doing well, or we are doing well here. Those informal meetings and simple interactions really have a lot of impact in your decision making. And at the same time, it has an impact on the fact that the human resource people feel that you are able to listen to them. And I think for me, the HR is the biggest critical thing. Maybe the second then comes to issues of finance.
Okay, which leads me to my next question, Dr. Tarno, because you touched on it. A TVET institution, as you know, is a center of excellence, really depends on qualified and committed staff to keep that institution at a particular standard. How do you keep your staff motivated in ODL, in your ODL environment?
ODL is reasonably a new area. But the most critical thing about finances, if you can allow me to talk about finances as it is, there are two ways of making money. The first one is to make money by either doing something or creating an income generation or working. The other one is to reduce expenses. But the best is the two. Yeah. Increase income, reduce expenses. That would be the best. But then comes the question of finances. A lot of people have had issues of finances because of the systems that they use in the institutions. I went to an institution the first time I was moved to a small institution at that time called Kaiboy Technical Training Institute. It had 26 lecturers and 50 students. And in 3-4 years' time, before I left, it had 700 students in a very deep rural place in Kenya, where even the road to reach the place is like 22 kilometers of real rough road and tarmac road, and sometimes it'd be difficult to reach there. But that increase of population was based on aspects of ability for you to do some things. One, stop leakages of money. And leakages are many. It can be from procurement, it can be direct stealing, it can be manipulation and forgery. All these things come together to go. So I call them financial leakages. The other one is having a management information system. But the most critical thing is managing that management information system. So I usually call it management information system and managing the management information system. A lot of people have very nice management information systems, but they don't work. Some of us even have emails of organizations that don't work. It gives you an idea that even if you have an MIS system that everyone can log in and do anything, transfer funds, that is another area that we need to look at. So people must have a very robust management information system that can be able. Some of them call it ERPs, whatever language you want to call that. The other one is, of course, the quality objectives that you really have to make. We talked of budgeting and busting the budgets, a very interesting area that is there. So if you can work on the question of increasing income, reducing expenses, or combining the two to make sure that it works, and also making sure that you have controlled financial leakages, I can assure you, you will have money to do any other thing, even if it is in order. Order is relatively expensive at the beginning, but someone has to buy the equipment. But the only way to buy the equipment is to get your finances. If you come to Kenya School of TVET, it's not like government has bought us a lot of equipment. We do it ourselves in small bits. Incrementally, you invest in small bits. This time you are buying some laptops. The next time you're buying a bigger server. The next time you're buying, you're increasing your bandwidth. All that goes in rolling and rolling. So I think for me, the biggest challenge is the human resource. If you get the correct human resource that is qualified, then they can be able to assist you to do every other thing, save money and do the other things that go with it.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Dr. Tarno. Yes. And keeping on that same pain, let's look at regulation. Tell us about the process employed in your institution to enshrine relevant regulations in the administrative, academic, and training, assessment, and qualification practices in your environment. That's a lot, but I'm sure you...
question. Okay, so let me put it that we are talking of how we can move, we can have a system that checks the institution. The first thing that is very critical in another system or in an institution is the infrastructure. The infrastructure here means many things because you're talking of quality. Quality infrastructure would mean many things. It would mean the buildings that students work in class, the computers that they are using, which is another situation. We could be meaning, the environment in which they sit, even just sitting places and the environment, even furniture of the place. Now, quality is a very difficult thing to deal with. You cannot deal with quality without dealing with the comfort and other related issues that go with it. You must, comfort is a very important, comfort of staff, or motivation of staff comes from their comfort physically, mentally, or perceived comfort, if you wish to put it that way. There are several things that you have to do in order to get that done. We talk of appreciation. You can appreciate the staff when they perform. You can also train the staff. Training motivates staff. If you are able to have staff being trained at every given time, it gives them motivation because they learn new things. And then, of course, we have an interesting one where we're talking of, it's a very common practice, Clover, where every trip that is being done, if it is Commonwealth of Learning, it is the principal and the deputy principal attending, and then the rest keep watching them fly in and fly out. Those kind of things that create a situation of disparity in information getting. If every one of us can feel wanted, that is enough motivation. And you don't get centers of excellence by assuming that they will happen without some effort. You really have to push. You have to get your performance contracting systems. You have to have targets that you must reach in every department. Even if your country does not have performance systems management, you as an institutional manager can create performance systems in which you have targets for this year, and then sit with your staff. The staff will start, of course, with you. What will you do? You negotiate with them. Of course, as an institution, you have the targets, which is based on a budget. But then after that budget has been approved by the members, then what will each member do? And you hold them responsible. Every quarterly reports must be there. You see, you will reasonably reach what you want. But if you work without a plan, then you plan actually to fail. So that is usually the biggest. Motivation is a big component that has to do with operations, comfort, psychological comfort, financial comfort, assurance comfort, appraisal comfort, all those things that go with that like that. So there are so many aspects. I know we can't complete all of them now. Thank you.
Yes. Could you tell us a little bit more though on the sort of regulations that you had to put in place in terms of transforming your institution?
Well, transforming an institution, of course, you have to have a strategic plan. That is a very critical component. And that strategic plan should not be up-down, it should be bottom-up. In other words, it should be people down agreeing on what are the areas of the strategic plan. We did our strategic plan recently at the Kenya School of TVET. Some strategic plans take 5 years, others take 3 years. But I think of late, because of the dynamism in the world, we need a strategic plan that actually takes 3 years, not 5 years. There are too many things that happen in 3 years, in 5 years. So you may need to reduce the strategic plan to have a 3-year program and try as much to stick to the strategic plan by also aligning your budgets with the strategic plan. The other aspect is to have quality assurance. You must have a strong quality assurance department. It's a difficult thing to do. It's also a challenge here at the Kenya School of TVET. How much, what is quality assurance department supposed to do? And how powerful are they, depending on the organization? Some organizations, the head of strategic planning and the quality assurance is a junior officer, which makes it difficult for people to move it. So we need to move that quality assurance to a higher level. I'm very proud about the reforms that have happened in Kenya recently. The State Corporations Advisory Committee, which advises on state corporations, has actually come up with a very interesting thing that the people running those people should be put at the second tier after the CEO. You see, that gives them the power to ask questions and to push people to perform on those particular areas. Of course, then the other one is very interesting. You cannot have regulations without competent staff. You cannot regulate me if you yourself, you are not in the level that you can regulate me. And that is where the challenge has been in Africa, particularly, I would say, because the person trying to tell you what to do is not doing what you are supposed to, what you're being told to do, because either they are not qualified in their jobs or they don't have the expertise in that particular area. So that we then have a mismatch in what you are saying and what you are doing. So I think generally the environment can be done. Same in ODEL, even if it's ODEL. Are the people running that ODEL qualified? Are you getting someone who is not a competent person in that sector to run? ODEL is a complex system. It's not the normal teaching class system, and people should appreciate that. It's not a walk in the park. ODEL is a complete learning system that has so much technical aspects that need to be taken care of. It's not the normal chalk and dust story that we always grew up knowing. So that is my take in that particular question of regulations.
Thank you, Dr. Tarno. My next question speaks to challenges. I know you have proven yourself in the area of transformation of institutions. It's obvious, and I really want to applaud you for that. But what would you say were some of the major challenges you face in the process of transforming your TVET institution? I know you have covered some, but certainly I'm sure there are others.
I think the bigger ones that are there usually is, because I've mentioned the HR issue, the finance issue, but the biggest one is the regulatory frameworks in most of the countries. In Africa, we have multiple agencies, for instance, maybe running TVET systems. So who runs what? And the conflicting interests among those particular aspects. I've seen this in Africa because I have been around in African countries. You find a TVET authority that is independent, another TVET authority is under the ministry, then another TVET authority is not even an authority, it's a small section within the ministry. So it's actually some little quality assurance thing that actually does not have ability to control itself. So we have that as an organizational problem in the African and other countries that I've traveled to, where they have conflicts that seem to be endless. Then we also have the issue of planners themselves. I'm sorry to say we have managers who, in my view, should not even be managers. I may not be the best, but I know there are managers who actually are not able to cope with the changes that are needed. You need a lot of reading, a lot of understanding of issues, a lot of networking to make it work. So regulatory frameworks, apart from that, is also an issue. And then we have, of course, the aspect of finance, and which I've explained that finances are a factor of management. If you are able to control the systems from above, not from the bottom, then you are able to control these things. Junior officers have very little control on how the colleges run. So you don't blame junior officers for the failures of the management. And therefore, management should be held to agree that they did not perform. But it cannot be, I did not perform because a junior officer did not perform. Then what are you senior? Because they are reprimanding regulations that go with it. So I think we also have to accept that some of the problems we're having is our own making as managers. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely agree, Dr. Tarno. Clearly, you are an outstanding leader. And what I want to ask, what would you say are some of the key leadership skills you use in the process of transformation of the institutions that you have led?
I had spoken earlier about perseverance, consistency, quality, financial discipline, HR and motivational systems. And the first one, which is persistence, is the most difficult part. How far can you go? Can you break down along the way? I reached a situation where I was in a place where I used to use my car to carry a pump that pumps water for students, and it is spoiled, and I have to run 40 kilometers to go and repair it with my own money, come back, put it on, because the next thing is that these guys will riot and say there was no water. Sometimes you have to go beyond the norm, and you have to sacrifice beyond the finance part. You can claim your money later if you wish, but at least the critical aspect is ability for you to solve the problems as they occur. And partnership is so critical. You have to have inculcation of partnership. Private sector has money. Private sector may not give you money, but they can give you credit. Private sector may not give you promotion, but they will give you support in many ways here and there. So in my view, then the private sector and public sector participation is important. It's difficult to be a leader in institutions. Recently, there was a quote that I was so surprised when I went to a university called Barnett here in Kenya, and it said, and it was said by President Moi, the late president. It says, it is so easy to be any other job, but it's very difficult to be a teacher. So, and I think I would like to add that it's even more difficult to run an institution because you have thousands of students, thousands of teachers, each with their different interests, each with political lineages that are difficult to control. Students are used to do many things, to riot, to do things, to discredit. So it's very difficult running institutions. So that ability for that perseverance, ability to keep consulting, ability to network with people is a very critical component in management. Thank you.
Absolutely. My last formal question before we go to asking the participants to field their question looks at quality assurance. And you, throughout your presentation, you have touched on quality. Quality is sometimes lost in the process of transformation. We know that. And we know how important quality is to TVET because TVET is already stigmatized in so many ways. So it's, quality in TVET is extremely important. How did you ensure that quality was not compromised at any time in the journey towards transformation of the institutions you led and you presently lead?
There are so many issues that come with that. The biggest problem about quality is not knowing what you want to do. Because quality is a byproduct of a process, of a working system. You cannot have quality, you cannot have a center of excellence if the systems are not working. When I was in Rift Valley Technical, the survey was done across Kenya and East African countries, the 5 East African countries. And they had a survey of 56 questions. And the directors of those countries each came to each institution to verify several things. And the first question was, are you ISO certified? Just imagine that. Mm-hmm. So if you are not ISO certified, you are done. The first question, you are yet to go 55 more questions to go. So that one. Number 2, when were your audits where you have the latest books of audit? If you say you don't have, you are also removed. You cannot reach high level of performance if the entire system is not working. In this case, the most critical aspect is the planning. Do you have a strategic plan? Yeah. Number 2, are you following it? Number 3, do you have a performance management system? A performance management system here refers to a performance appraisal system, a performance that each one of us is held individually from the principal to down to the heads of departments, and of course also goes down to the lecturers. If it's a question of performance in terms of time, performance in terms of quality, it should be there. Then do you have a quality standard? I always told people, chip is very expensive. You are asked to go and buy a tap. You go and buy the cheapest tap. It works for 2 weeks. You have to buy another tap. It is easier to buy things, however small bits they are, that are going to stay a bit longer. So chip is expensive. And therefore, if trying to become easy in the way you run TVET institutions is difficult. And the other one that I want to tell you, Clover, which has been the biggest challenge, and it is the biggest story, which I've disagreed several times with government officers as I grew up. I was a chairman of Principals Association at one time, is student population. Here comes a government guy who tells you that you now must increase your enrollment, you must mop up the youth, and then this is a technical institution. You're going to teach mechanical engineering. You only have machines to teach 20. Now you're bringing 200. So what you're doing is actually causing more harm. It's not helping you. Quality control means you do what your facilities can be able to do, not what you think you should do. If you want to expand, then expand every other aspect of it. You have teachers who are teaching. You have 10 teachers and you have 1,000 students. They cannot work. Now we are moving to competence-based, which limits the numbers. If you look at the UNESCO Univoc standards for technical education, it's 25 students, and medical students, it's 25 students. TVET is 25. And they say, okay, if it's business, you can move to 50 or 30. But we are also now allowed to move at least to technical to around 30. So this quality thinking is a box that has got so many small bits that go with it. Look at another quality issue. How responsive are you to the students? Because the king and the queen is a student. If you are not able to listen to the students' issues, they write to you, you have switched off your phone. They send you an email, you don't reply. Or even your email does not work. So, you know, the whole issue is in quality assurance, we say the customer is key. So if the customer is key and the customer gets satisfied, you may not satisfy all their needs, but at least there should be a responsive system that can be able to allow these people to talk their issues. You should be able to address what you can address. And you also be able to be open enough to tell them this one may be addressed this year or next year and explain reasons why these things happen. So quality assurance is a big thing, but the critical components are those issues of planning. And I said planning is everything. You either plan to succeed or you plan to fail. Failure to plan is planning to fail. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, Dr. Tarno. As you mentioned, planning. Let me just jump in on that one because I see, obviously, for you to have gotten where you are to create this center of excellence, planning was important. How have you involved your staff, your TVET staff, in the process of planning?
I mentioned earlier that the process of planning is a bottoms-up approach. It is not up-down.
Definitely.
So you start with the departments, in our cases, you work with them upwards. You know, we have this budget this time. Do you think it makes sense? Sometimes it's also difficult to start from the bottom straight away. You can have a budget allocated by government as this amount, because governments keep varying their funding. Then can you work backwards and say, okay, what are their priority areas with the little money that we have been given? Then you now work with them on those specific areas. But the biggest story is you already have a plan called strategic plan. Yes. So if the strategic plan was correct, then it's not difficult for you to know which ones are the priority areas. And the biggest priority areas is not priority areas that do not address the needs of the customer. For instance, the focus should be the student. When I was in Rift Valley, we built a lot of massive structures. But if you looked at the office of the principal, it's still just a simple structure that has got 5 rooms. Because the story is, why would you want to stay in a top palatial office and students are intense? Yeah. So the question of prioritizing is that it should be student focused, not teacher focused. So you must plan with the student in space. If the students don't have equipment, then there is no need of trying to look at the other aspects that do not go with it. So focus should be on the student, planning should be a critical component. And remember, the issue of student focus, especially now in CBET. CBET is student-centered. Yeah. So you cannot run away from the fact that it's a student-centered thing. And for me, this philosophy of student-centeredness is so important, but a lot of people discard it because we think we are big. We You think I'm a principal. You think you are a rector. You think you are a big man, you know. So this issue of trying to become above the students in how you operate is also not a fair deal. So there should be a compromise between your relative comfort and more comfort for the students.
Absolutely. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Dr. Tarno. I so agree with that. I think you touched on it as well in terms of partnership. And we know in TVET that resources are never enough. And you mentioned it before, that certainly financial resources, there's always a struggle there. In your process of transformation of your institution, how key was partnership with industry in that process, and how did you create these partnerships?
I think the first thing we have to agree is that we train for the industry.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then it means the second biggest person after the student is the industry. So if you can put hierarchy as a student is number one, the industry is number two, and all of us come below, including government, it's below. Because if the industry feels that you are important to them, they will finance you. Where I was at Rift Valley, because that was I stayed longer and had a lot of funding. And even where I am now, I have a lot of funding, reasonable to deal with my own. The industry partners are so critical. Involve them in your decision making. Put them in your councils or your boards. Don't put your cronies in the boards. Put industry in the boards. Put industry to help attach your students. Visit those industries as a CEO or as the industrial liaison officers or the heads of departments. Visit them, talk to them. They will feel wanted. I want to tell you, there is a lot of money in industry. So much money, you'll be surprised. Recently, we approached some few here in Kenya. We had Toyota partnered with us to sponsor students. The Students' Council partnered with us to sponsor students who are needed. So you can see the two, the industry and students can do a lot of things that we don't believe. The second one is to follow the MOUs. Work with the MOUs, with the industry. Write MOUs with them. What are your inputs? What is their input? What is your engagement level? What benefits do you derive and what benefits do they derive? The private sector does not have time to waste. The private sector is not interested in comfort. The private sector wants profits. So all you need to show them is to show that you can have profits. I remember where I was, because now I'm dealing with teachers, which you don't have a lot of time for industrial attachment. We went into hotels and we told them, instead of employing more workers, let's write an MOU that I'll give you students who are in the higher level to come for industrial attachment. And they gave us the schedule so that give me 10 every. So they reduced their workers by half. So what happened is that you are now indispensable. We just have to work with you. In other words, half of your workers are my students. And as much as they get industrial attachment, they're also getting some little stipend. So industry is so critical. And I want to assure you, the governments in the world will never have enough money. So the earlier you work with the industry and create even income generating activities that come with it, then it is going to work. And most of our TVET institutions are very good equipment. Why can't you use them for income generation? Or why can't you have an MOU with private sectors? In Kenya, we call them informal sector juakali. Why don't you allow them to use your facilities for a fee? One, they will appreciate your college. And two, they'll have your students in attachment. And three, you will make money. So I think industry is key in this particular component.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Tarno. We're inviting questions now from the participants. If you have questions that you'd like Dr. Tarno to answer, based on his wealth of experience in TVET and particularly in transformation of TVET systems, we ask that you raise your questions now. And I'm checking the chat. I'm not seeing any questions as yet. Let me check. Okay. There's no question there. Let me continue then, Dr. Tarno, in terms of just to zero in a little bit more on those MOUs with industry. I know, and as you said, that industry really has no time to waste. You know, they're about business and making money and ensuring. And at the same time, the outputs from the TVET system, they want them to be quality outputs. And so that partnership is key in terms of allowing our graduates from the system to have it where hit the road running as they exit from the institution. So those partnerships are key. And I have a question here from Abdul, and Abdul says, what can you tell us? What can you tell us on students' device financing in ODL?
Students financing.
Yes, in ODL.
Now, it depends on the country that you are in. In Kenya, students are financed through the Higher Education Loans Board. I'm aware in Nigeria, it also has the same kind of system. And most African countries have higher education loan systems that can be used. I'm also aware that ODL as an independent unit, most African countries do not actually have ODL as a course. ODL is not a course, it is a support system that helps us to teach other courses. So you may not have direct funding for ODL as it is, but then you can have the private sector coming in. Let me give you an example. During the time of COVID in Kenya, I was 99% of Kenyan TVETs shut down. So the minister at that time was the late Professor Magoa. So he calls me when I was hiding from COVID in Eldoret, and he tells me, my friend, we have nothing going on in the institutions. We have appointed you as the chairman of the committee to intervene on how learning can take place. I'm very happy. One of the people who assisted us at that time, well, of course, Kenya School of TVET at that time was KTTC, and it had a better system than where I was at Rift Valley, which was, I think, was the second one. But KTTC had a better system, and courtesy of people like Kinda, who actually initiated the initial programs of the system. We selected people that are actually on this forum today to take a risk and travel to Nairobi to get permission that is so specific to come and study how to run the ODL systems for Kenya. Now, remember, everyone is running away. Everyone is hiding in their homes. Nobody wants to talk, but these guys took a risk to come to Nairobi and go through some packages. Now, but then after that, what happened? Are we able to roll out? We were not able to roll out ODL because we through the ODL system because the bundles were expensive, what you call the data bundles. But what did we do? Industry came in. Safaricom, which is a Vodacom company in Kenya and one of the biggest in Africa, actually free bundles. They were calling it whitelisting. And they gave bundles to us so that you can give students so that they can attend online class. So you can see, even ODL itself, if you work with industry, there are so many things you can do. They can donate. HP as a company has been able to donate a lot of equipment that can be used around. You can have the white listing of data bundles across the places. You can also have, very many open source resources that are very available even in the Commonwealth of Learning portals and many others. So I think the issue of ODL is not as complicated as you want to imagine. Smartphones nowadays work. In a survey we did last year after the COVID for the whole country, you will be surprised. When you ask students, I think we did an interview almost 2,000 TVET students, which is a very big number comparatively. And the biggest method they say they like learning with, you will be surprised, it was WhatsApp. Students said we are better off using WhatsApp to learn. And it was interesting, 69% said WhatsApp works for them. So you can see that ODL should not be seen as an expensive undertaking if you bring in the industry and then bring in the experts. Commonwealth of Learning has done so many things. I remember using the Raspberry, which Okinda asked us to use. You can use, repository places that students can use. In some remote areas in Namibia, they were actually able to carry discs across. You can use couriers to carry them and go and be used to teach. So we are just stuck to the imagination that ODL should be transmitted as we are talking now. There are so many modes that can be used in rural areas, in remote areas, and many technologies that can also be derived. So funding of ODL should not be seen as it should be in a particular context. It depends on the circumstance that you are in. If you are in a remote area, there are methodologies that you can work and the methods that you can use. And I think by visiting some of the sites like the ones of Commonwealth of Learning and other institutions across the world, we have learned so many ways of dealing with that particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I see there's no other question there. Just to touch on the areas you mentioned in terms of student engagement in ODL. How have, in your experience, how have you seen the handling of assessment and qualifications in that process?
That is a very big elephant in the house. And we had that issue in Kenya. It was debated and it was a very hot issue. Because the question is, are you sure students are in class? If you are using WhatsApp and then telling you I don't have bundles and they have switched off their cameras, what happens? Maybe they have just switched them on and want to do some milking or some farming somewhere, and you are imagining that you have 200 students while actually you have 50. So that is one. Two was which of course now there are new technologies can be able to assist the issue of movement. May not be perfect. But the most important thing that I think each one of us is grumbling with is how do you examine using the audio systems or using digital platforms. That has been a very difficult thing to do. Remember, technical education, you can't have everything in using online systems. In Kenya, for instance, TVETA Authority and the Commission for University Education, on areas that are considered TVET, you are not allowed to do beyond 50% of your time online, so that then you can have the competence. So that is a challenge. I don't have a straight answer for that. Maybe smarter guys in the house can assist. And maybe that area is an area that we may need to increase our thinking about, because we are dealing with TVET. We are not dealing with theory-based issues. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Very good response, Dr. Tarno. We have a question from Joseph. And Joseph is saying, in this era of artificial intelligence and generative AI, how best can we leverage on this technology in blended learning without jeopardizing quality in learning? Thanks, Joseph, for that question.
Thank you. I wrote an article recently that I think most of you must have seen. I think I sent across. It was about the impact of AI in education.
Mm-hmm.
And AI is going to change the way we work. It's already changing it. The problem with AI is that it learns. And as it learns, it generates.
Yeah.
And it keeps it in its database and it be able to reproduce. There are very many benefits of AI, but then there are also very many risks. The first one is we can use AI for many interesting things. For instance, you can use AI for virtual learning. If you are doing welding, it's possible then for you to generate a welding system without actually physically welding and wasting material. AI does that very well. You can be able to show the functions of lungs or a heart using the artificial intelligence systems, because they are able to generate that virtually. You can also use AI to learn. You know, if you can have a big repository on a particular core area, let's say electrical engineering, AI can be able, you can be able to ask questions and the student will be able to have the answers. You don't have to really need a teacher. Teachers don't necessarily have to be there, because you can ask a question and you get the answers. It's a higher version of Google, which we say we keep Googling. You can be able to get specific answers. So it has a lot of benefits that can be used, but then comes in the challenges. Examinations. I can write for you a paper in 10 minutes. I can finish my assignments in 2 hours, all the 4 of them. If it is something that is asking that you are describing how the lathe machine works, oh, that is very easy. You will actually finish your assignments instantly. Then the question then would be, how do we control the aspect that these were not done? Of course, they have come with very many other aspects that have been there. We have plagiarism softwares that can be able to say this particular thing came from a particular place and it has been replicated many times. That may be difficult for teachers to all of them do that. But then let's talk about CBET and AI. I can tell AI to write for me how to plane timber. It will give me. But then the next thing I'll do is, thank you for the assignment. It's only 20%. Now let's go to the workshop. Now plane the timber for me. That is where AI stops. Because then that becomes the competence-based issue. So for TVET institutions, you cannot rely on AI-generated information without taking people to the competence level in which you have to do it. Because AI can't cook for you if you are a chef. AI can't weld for you if you are a welder. So there is a limit to it, and there are the risks to it. And of course, every new technology has its own limitations and its advantages. But the AI has a lot of good things that will be coming. If you looked at the medicine field, AI has a lot of things that it can be able to assist. But then we also have another problem in AI. Most African countries and the developing countries have not even enacted laws to control the artificial intelligence. So that becomes a risk. If you remember AI when it came, Italy banned it. Just said, we are not using this thing until we understand how it works. And it is very interesting to notice some of these things. And it's the most liked system currently in the world, AI.
Yeah.
That's what I can say.
Very well answered. Thank you so much, Dr. Tarno. We're coming down, but I'm sure you can take a few more questions, Dr. Tarno. So one is from Jack Juma, and he said he's proud to have the nuggets of wisdom from his former principal. A great presentation. Glad to be drinking from the cup of wisdom. Thank you so much for that, from the cup of wisdom. I like that. But another question is from Husman, and Husman says, how can we control the exam malpractice in TVET? That's a hard one, Dr. Tarno.
Well, it's very easy to control malpractice of exams. Most institutions do not have academic policies. Yeah. Academic policies are important. In Kenya, the minimum number of policies a national polytechnic should have is 16. One of them is the academic policy. In that academic policy, what have you specified? The registration time, the examination time, what you should look like when you're coming to the class. What should you carry into the examination room? Now, recently we introduced in Kenya School of TVET a gadget that it examines you to know that if you are the one. It's something portable. And during exams, you just put your biometric finger. And because it is linked to the base of the data of the institution, it just tells you you are not the person to be. It even gives you how much balance of fees you have if a condition is that you must clear your fees. So technology is there that can be used to make these things work. The other aspect is, of course, the physical part. You can't have 200 students being invigilated by one person. Yeah. Then what are the punishment regulations? If you are found having a malpractice, can you specify those regulations in your academic policy? And when students are joining the college, they should sign and accept that the academic policy I have read and understood. In most places, it is a whole booklet that has got all many aspects of it. It's an academic thing. Remember, we are academic institutions. You may not have a good income generating place, so you may not have income generating policy. But since all of those have a basis of academia, it means the first academic thing you should have is an academic policy, showing the punishments, the reprimands that go with it. In some institutions, you can suspend it for a year. In some institutions, you do some exams. So this kind of discipline that is put in a legal process inhibits that particular thing. So the use of technology, the use of the physical presence, and also the use of policy and legal provisions that are there in law.
Awesome. Thank you. Very well explained, Dr. Tarno. A follow-up question from Josie. Really a comment. He says, are virtual workshops and virtual reality a thing to consider in the delivery of CBET, competency-based education? And Jet Juma is contributing again, and he said, I believe we can benchmark from Facebook on how to do exams online. He did a course on them, Facebook Blueprint, and I really appreciated how they incorporated technology for exam purposes. So those are some questions and comments that we had in the chat. Let me just see if there's any other questions here for you, Dr. Tarno. I'm not seeing any other questions, and I think we're almost at the end. Thank you so much, Dr. Tarno, and I'm checking my time. And I see we have 2 minutes to the hour. So Dr. Tarno, if there are no other questions from the participants, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you so much for taking the time from a long day to join us and to deliver so well in telling us your story and the many wonderful and practical things you did along this journey. Is there a final comment you want to give to our group of participants, Dr. Tarno? Before you go, these are young TVET practitioners who they do not enjoy the benefit of 35 years young like you. And so just a word to them before we say goodnight from the platform.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank you, Clover, and Kinda, and the Commonwealth of Learning for giving us this opportunity to share our experiences. What I've shared is my experience. May not be the best experience or the worst, but it's a learning place. I just want to conclude by telling people that TVET works. TVET works. And if you believe in that, then you just have to develop the methodologies to make it work. The second thing is keep networking. You only learn from the people who have been ahead, and you also learn from the people you are with. And there's another interesting thing. You also learn from people who are behind you and also learn from students. So have a wide network. Don't just stay and be a person who stays with your group. Have a wider network. Today we have shared what we can share. Let it be shared across. The last one is please benchmark.
Yeah.
You must benchmark. And benchmarking does not mean that you have to go to Jamaica to benchmark from Kenya. You can go to the neighboring institution. You can go to the neighboring countries that are near and cheap to benchmark. You can also benchmark online. These things are always there, and it's possible for us to all learn from one another. So I really want to wish all of you well, and that we are always available to keep learning from one another, and that time will tell. We are doing well, and I believe that with our assisting each other, we are going to go to good places in the future. Yeah. Thank you very much, and I also want to thank the participants for making it and giving me this opportunity to discuss and share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tarno. And Esther says, great presentation, Dr. Tarno, and other comments. Just thanking you for delivering so well and sharing your story on this journey of 35 years and still going. Thank you so much on behalf of the Commonwealth of Learning for joining us in our third webinar, and thanks to our participants who joined. Thank you for listening on this call and for participating. Thanks again, Dr. Tarno, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and good night to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.